Hi there, everyone. This is once again is Gregory Q. Jenkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Quintasia Studios, and this is the Quintasia Podcast. Welcome back. We have another episode today for you. We have a great guest today, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy talking with our guest today. So let me give you a brief little intro about our guest. Okay, our guest today is the founder of the Latino Filmmakers Network. And she's, in addition to being an actor herself, she's a producer and director. And we found that we found in her a kindred spirit. And I think you're going to enjoy learning more about her and her organization. So please welcome to the podcast, Maylen Calienes. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for having me here. Gregory, Harvey, wonderful seeing you, talking to you, and all that good stuff.
Yes, as we continue our pandemic era interviews, as I like to say.
Camera ready on our own here, right?
Yes.
Did you guys put some powder on this morning?
No.
Yes.
Harv did. He put on some powder. I don't have a makeup person around. I guess I got to get one.
I just have the powder on the side. You know, it's like everyone does their own pretty much,
yes,
right?
That's it. Don't want to be shiny.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who are only listening to the audio portion, you have no idea what we're talking about, but it's the rigors of television and making oneself look presentable on Zoom, or in our case, WebEx. And I'm sure many of you out there listening have had that experience, as we have all become web conference experts over the last 2 years. Well, so we have with us today, like I said, we have Maylen, and we're going to learn more about her organization, and then you're going to get to know why, and you're going to see how this fits in what we've been talking about on our podcast, particularly for this season, and what Quintasia is all about. So let me start by asking you, tell us a little bit about the Latino Filmmakers Network and why you started it.
Yes. Well, I started the Latino Filmmakers Network in 2015 at the Sundance Film Festival. And the reason why I started it was because there needed more representation of the Latino community, not only at Sundance, but also in the entertainment industry. To make a long story short, I spoke to you, I spoke a little bit about it to you, Gregory. I moved out here to Los Angeles from Miami. In Miami, I acted, also wrote and directed in theater. When I moved to LA, started off with the acting, and soon after I got representation, any representation I would get out here, I noticed that I was put in a box because I happened to be Latina. Coming from theater, I was able to play all sorts of characters. I was just an actor. Out here in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry, immediately I was put into a box just because I happened to be not seen as an actor, just seen as someone that's Latina. So let's send her to all the Latino roles, and the Latino roles happen to be very, very stereotyped. In our case, maids, gardeners, gang members, the girlfriend of the gang member, the over-sexualized Latina girl, so it's like, but the same all the time, the same all the time. As an actor, that personally did not fulfill me to play the same roles all the time or go to the same auditions all the time. And at the same time, I'm like, wow, where's the range? Where's the, I like playing different roles. I like playing fun characters. That's where I come from. So I, there is where I started noticing that there was something wrong with the entertainment industry, because my colleagues were going through the same thing. And then I started seeing other groups going through similar things, right? So then after I made my very first short film and I saw it on the big screen playing at the ArcLight in Hollywood, that's when I sat back and I said, you know what, I'm going to focus more on the behind the scenes stuff. So then there I was focusing more on writing, directing, and producing. I needed to learn how to produce so I could make my own movies, and I dove into the writing and directing of filmmaking. Of course, I worked as an actor in front of the camera, but I also worked doing several different roles behind the camera with other filmmakers. So I got to learn a little bit before I dove into making my first short film. So then after making several short films, doing pretty well with them, having people connecting with them, the types of movies I like to make are universal stories. I lean a little bit more towards dramedy, comedy, but universal stories that anyone could connect with. The lead actors maybe just happened to be Latino, but then I saw that there was still a problem happening there. When my movies are doing well, they get picked up by, to be optioned, but then nothing's happening, nothing's going out there. At the same time, I'm going to the Sundance Film Festival every year as a producer and a filmmaker, and I don't see the representation of my community there. I see this other organization, Black House Foundation, they're representing the Black filmmakers. I thought that was really cool, but our community wasn't being represented. So that's when I decided to start the Latino Filmmakers Network at Sundance, to see more of that representation, to have a house for our community there. And to kind of like, I threw myself in the fire there a little bit, because it's like you kind of, I became an activist, not just for the Latino community because I happen to be Latina, but I truly believe in diversity and inclusion in general. I believe in making work that reflects what the world truly looks like, right? And not stereotyping so many different types of people that deserve not to be stereotyped each and every time, because a lot of people that are not out there in the world connecting with so many different types of people, or live in big cities, they educate themselves through TV and film. So in the end, it's more than getting just a job, because of course we fight for opportunity. We need to like be behind the camera in those writers' rooms, directing in the executive positions in order to give other people opportunities, right? But, and to get those jobs, but it's also about representation. Representation truly does matter in the entertainment industry and also in media. So this is why I started the Latino Filmmakers Network, not only to bring that visibility and opportunity to the Latino community and proper representation, but also for diversity and inclusion, because within the Latino Filmmakers Network, it's a very diverse network as well. And I do other events like the New Normal Reading Series that brings together other groups of underrepresented communities, besides the Latino group, Black, Native American, Asian, South Asian, Middle Eastern, to kind of like highlight their work. So that's a little bit of everything right there.
Well, that's great, and that's what we're all about here at Quintasia. And I'll save some of my preaching for the end of our conversation. We talked a little bit about it yesterday in terms of the philosophy that I'm trying to put out there about encouraging our communities to fund, our projects. Rather than waiting for Hollywood or Wall Street to take notice, we have the capital within our own communities to make this a reality. But it's not something that we can do on an individual basis. It's something that we collectively have to decide. This is what we want for ourselves. But I'll save that for a little bit later in the conversation. So let's let me ask you this question, and I like to, well, before I ask the next question, I said this to you yesterday, but I want to say it now again, while we're, on camera, because I think it's important. Um, because that's one of the reasons why when I learned a little bit more about you, I definitely wanted to have you as a guest on our podcast. And thank you so much for taking the time for being with us. But ladies and gentlemen, in case if you've never done something like trying to start an organization, it is not easy, and it takes a lot of personal sacrifice. The amount of time that you spend curating relationships, it's no different than starting a business. I mean, you have to curate relationships. You got to get people to care. I mean, just because you hang a shingle out there doesn't mean that everyone all of a sudden goes, "Oh yeah, great, let's go, let's be a part of this."
I feel
You've
like you
got.
understand me, Gregory.
I do, because that's what we're going through now. I mean, everybody in theory agrees with you, but then there's the hard work that has to come to take that theory
Yes,
and
yes.
actualize that.
It's true, yeah, because even in social media, sometimes you just see like the fun events, the smiles, and all that stuff. But the amount of work that it takes to put these events together, not which is not just like having an event, it's also there's a meaning behind it, right? Because you're
Right.
there to say, hey, we're here, we're visible, we're present, right? To bring people together, to work together, type of thing, right? That's why these events are important, these networking events and things like that, and also to educate the community or communities, right? It does take a lot of personal sacrifice, even from your own stuff, work that you've wanted to create throughout the years, because the need of representation is so important that if that representation is not there, you could create as much work as you want, but how is it going to get out there? How is it going to be seen? How is it going to be appreciated? How is it going to be understood? Not just my work, but the work of so many talented people that I know in this industry, right? So yeah, that, and it takes also an emotional toll.
Yes.
It takes an emotional toll, and you start to get to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess. Right? So,
Definitely.
yeah.
And
So
well, before,
sometimes it's
but
hard not to get discouraged, right?
Right.
oh,
No, I mean,
yes.
it's one of those things that you have that moment that you're like, why am I, so I've had those moments that I'm like, why am I doing this? Do people even appreciate what I do? I've had those moments, right? And then like the next day, it's like I get up again and I go at it again, and it just makes me much more fierce because it's like I've worked so hard, I believe in this. I just have to continue being the person that I am and the person that believes in this and being my true self, because that's all I could do, whether people appreciate you or not. And because I know that at least one day, I'll be like, I will be that person, in the future that would say, I'm going to die with no regrets. I tried, you
And
know?
that's why I wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the work that you do, because I know that, and this is one of my personal missions as I meet people like yourselves, just to say to you, hey, I see the work you're doing, and thank you. Thank you. It inspires the rest of us. So it's a moment of validation, I hope, for you, to let you know that sacrifice is worth it, because it is making a difference. And I'll leave this topic with this one thought. I'm paraphrasing and probably badly, something that Kobe Bryant said. He says the mistake that people make about being great is they think you wake up and you're great all of a sudden. It doesn't work that way. It's you getting up every day doing something, and every day it's small, it's incremental. On a day-to-day basis, you sometimes can't even tell that you're making a difference, but when you take those moments and when you look back, then that's when you realize, wow, this is how far I've come. You went from seeing a need to, deciding to do something about it. So that's definitely, you've moved the ball forward. So it's you may not be able to fully appreciate what you've done, but you've done something big here. So thank you for that. So now I will want to invite you to kind of think about, because I often ask myself a similar question. So if Latino filmmakers had more access and opportunities to tell their stories, what do you think that world would look like?
I mean, it would be a beautiful world. I love watching stories, all types of stories, not just only from Latinos. That's the way that I educate even myself about other people that I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about, you know? So whether we tell our stories that are meaningful to us because of our family backgrounds and cultures, or the more universal stories, like I kind of told you a little bit about Gregory, that maybe they're universal stories that are entertaining, but you could kind of put in there a little bit of that social issue, right? And through entertainment, educate people, right? But most importantly, seeing people being reflected in a much more positive way, not seeing the same minorities being reflected as the drug dealers or the gangbangers. We know those shows are very popular. Those are the types of shows that the entertainment industry likes to put people, box people in when they come from different backgrounds or whatever. But then people see people as that all the time. Oh, you're Latina, you're Latino also, you deal with drugs, or you deal with this, or, when we have so many professionals also in our communities that are attorneys and doctors, and, it's about just having a balance, right? Having a balance and having everyone being seen, right? But I think it would be a much more beautiful world if, we could educate people a little bit through entertainment and even media, right? About our communities by having our stories told also by us, because many times there are stories out there where there's characters, or or they try to tap into very specific stories of maybe a Latino community or Latino character, but then nobody behind the camera is Latino that's writing it, right? So it's like, where do you cross the line there? You need to have real people talk about the real experiences too, even if you're creating a fictional character, right? So I like to see stories, of course, yes, made by my community, because I happen to be Latina. So yeah, I love universal stories, but I love watching stories too. Uh, you know, Made by other communities where I get to learn, about their. I was telling you, like, Get Out is a perfect example. Jordan Peele, right? A horror movie, very entertaining. You don't know what's going to happen next, but in between there, in that horror movie, he talks about a very important social issue, right? So I love that type of stuff. And then, for example, there's a show on Netflix called Unorthodox. It talks about the Orthodox Hasidic Jews and a young woman that grew up in that community, and it's based on a true story. A wonderful show. It's like you get to kind of go into that world too. I think it's an amazing thing to go into other people's worlds that you don't understand, because that's how you become a little bit more open-minded about what different people grow up in, the cultures, because we're all different. This is why sometimes people butt heads, right? We all come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different upbringings. And through media and television, through that representation, there's a little bit of the entertainment industry has an enormous, it can be such a big superhero in that sense. I always call ourselves superheroes, and change makers as filmmakers, because we could really create that positive impact and educate others, so they won't be so afraid of other communities, and and still entertain themselves through us and learn about us, right? So I think it'll be a beautiful thing. And not just
Absolutely.
Latinos, like I said, everyone. I'm all about diversity and inclusion. So
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Um, so this last question that I'll put to you, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about a little earlier, and um, you know, being a person of color yourself, I'm sure you went through this. Undoubtedly, there'll be someone out there who's going to come across this podcast who may be experiencing some of the challenges that we've been talking about. Although originally I wrote this question, I said, but I'll pose it more broadly. So to people of color out there who are struggling to get their voices heard and to get their story out there, what would you say to them?
I say not to wait around for anybody, because sometimes I feel like, and we even get sometimes emails through Latino Filmmakers Network, oh, I have this great story, but I'm waiting around for someone to give us a hand, this and that. I didn't wait around. I didn't go to film school. I learned by just being out there and putting myself behind the camera, and other friends that are filmmakers films, and just experiencing it, and then having other people that are like more knowledgeable than me working with me behind the camera, while I was directing or producing or whatever, right? I did not wait around. I just did it. And I think that nowadays we have even easier access to creating content because of smartphones that shoot 4K and the internet, right? That you could just even shoot something on your phone and put it on the internet, right? On YouTube or whatever, right? So I say, there's so many platforms, like even so much more right now than there was when I was around. Like when I started, I literally had to speak to other people that I made friends that were filmmakers and stuff, that would say, hey, yeah, check this camera out, and will educate me on the different
Right.
cameras, or like check this class out or whatever, right? But now it's like there's so much access. You could even learn about filmmaking probably on the internet,
Absolutely.
So I would say, do not wait around for anyone, or sit around like, waiting for that person to come and give you that hand. Go out there, do the work, put it out there, that's a very important thing, put the work out there. If there's a story you believe in it, work hard to put it out there, get a team together, get other people that believe in your story, to work with you. It's okay to work with other people that are smarter about filmmaking. That's how you learn. You'll learn every
Right.
single movie you make, every single thing you do. You'll learn. And I've sat in the Directors Guild, and I've heard some of the best directors of our time, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, J.J. Abrams, speak. And they all say the same thing, that they even learn in every movie that they make. So, life in general, what I always say about life is about growing, learning, and evolving. And if you're not doing those three things, you're not living, right? So the same thing with the filmmaking. When you're making movies, you're learning, you're growing, and you're evolving every single thing you do. And it's fine to make that first one that sucks. At least you made
Right.
it. It's important that you make it, right? So yes, go out there, don't wait around for anyone, make it. Now what I would like to say, though, that I've had these conversations recently with a lot of different people, is people, executives, and producers, and maybe even actors, name actors, or people in levels, right, that are capable of bringing the elevator down, bring the elevator down. Give opportunities to a lot of these new talents, or talents that have been around but they haven't had that next step. Give opportunities, because there's so many people out there that they're not even seen, They're not represented by the big agencies. Studios are not finding sometimes especially from our communities, the writers that they need or whatever. And then sometimes they're like, oh, but we don't have anyone that's good, or we can't find anyone. But yeah, because we're not represented by the big agencies, right? But if there's someone in the community, if there's someone outside of the community that wants to help other communities, bring that elevator down and give opportunities, because that's how not only this industry, that's how any industry works. It's about who you know, right? So, bring the elevator down and give other people opportunities, give new people and new voices opportunities, whether they've been around for a while, and they just need that next step, or the ones that need, because I know like Steven Spielberg gave that opportunity to J.J. Abrams, right? So it's like, that's how it works. You need a little bit of that mentorship. You need that opportunity. So, and executives, I say take risks. Right now is the time to take risks on especially underrepresented communities. You have to take the risk in order to get new great stories out there. We need better films out there anyway right now, coming from studios. That's what I feel. Like I'm in this industry because I grew up watching amazing movies, and I love a lot of the classic films and stuff like that. Right now there's so much like no stories and lots of CGI and all that stuff, and a lot of like remakes and stuff like that. There's so many stories out there and so many new talents out there, especially in the Latino community. We need a lot of Hollywood is great at like, kind of like, grabbing somebody and kind of like creating them. Right. So it's like we've been needing that for many, many years in the American Latino community. We need those talents that Hollywood molds, kind of thing, in a good way, right? So then when it comes a time, it's like, oh, okay, this director and writer that's like has a name, they're making a movie, they're not going to choose as the lead actors or sometimes even supporting people with no names. They need a little bit of a name. We don't have too many of those people in our community because Hollywood hasn't molded our community, throughout the decades, right? So it's like we need more of those talents also, Latino talents in leading roles, American Latino talents,
Right.
So yeah, that's what I say. Bring down that elevator and take more risks with underrepresented storytellers, and storytellers, just tell your stories and keep doing it.
Well said. Well said. I'm going to take a little break here in case people did not join at the top of the podcast. This is the Quintasia podcast, and today we are talking with Maylen Calienes of the Latino Filmmakers Network. For those of you who follow our podcast, you know how we roll. It's our management team asking questions of our guests. And now I'm going to turn it over to our CTO, Harv Lacko, who will continue the conversation. Take it away, Harv.
Great story.
Thank
Maylen.
you.
Really enjoyed speaking with you. What you said about do the work and put it out there. I'm interested in, a little bit more granular, a little bit more specific. Could you tell us about some of the high profile actors involved in the Latino Film Network and how they got involved?
Well, you mean actors specifically?
Well, that's I'm
Yeah.
curious about the actors as well. I mean, I think you sort of illustrated for the directors, sort of bring the elevator down. I'm just
Right.
wondering how the actors, how you attract, some of the high profile actors to the
Oh,
Latino
yeah,
Film Network.
we have a lot of actors that are part of the network, and I think it's a great thing because that's how, for me, the most important thing is that, again, you can't wait around, so you have to connect your own community or with other people, right? So you could create your own stories and you meet other people through that. So we have a lot of actors that participate, as part of our network, and whether it's through Latino Filmmakers Network, through Latino Filmmakers Network, I've been also, I've hosted and been part of other events where I've put together panels and stuff like that with, yes, much more high profile people, whether it's actors or behind the camera, which is always an amazing thing, right? But it's like, yes, like I said, I hold accountable these people. I'm like, bring the elevator down, give more opportunity to people. But I feel like I've become more passionate though, of like bringing up that undiscovered talent, and by getting all the undiscovered talent together and working together type of thing. It kind of gets to that point because unfortunately, again, anyone that's high profile or whatever, and I don't want to name any names,
That's fine.
The lack of bringing that elevator down is still there, and providing more of those opportunities, right? And that could go for any other community too, but in my community specifically, there are some Latino actors that are great and that are very positive and that are out there, pushing for that representation, and they're on top of it all the time, which I see that constantly. Also, but one thing is also talking, and the other thing is taking action, right? And some of those people do take actions, and they do a little bit here and there. But we have to take greater action. We really have to move forward as a community, push forward, come together as a community, no matter our backgrounds. The thing with the Latino community, specifically our community, is that we're the most diverse community people don't know about, because we go from white to dark black, and people sometimes are like, oh, wow, there's black people in your community. Well, Celia Cruz is Cuban just like me, it's like, a lot of people know who she is, right? Yeah, we have white and like dark black in our community. We're super diverse. We have indigenous, right? We have such a diverse community. We're also from different backgrounds. I'm Cuban, have my colleagues that are Puerto Rican, Colombian, Mexican, from all over the place. And I think that's so beautiful, because I love learning about everybody's different backgrounds and cultures. But a lot of us grew up here in America, in the United States. And that's what I feel binds us, it bonds us, the American Latino. I like saying American Latino because the American part is what brings us together. We have a little bit of our culture in us, which is beautiful. And, we get to celebrate a lot of that and a lot of other cultures, but the American part really brings us together, and we're very unique. We're a little different. We would be a little different even from anybody else, any other Latinos coming in from Latin America, because we have a different voice. We grew up here, so that's actually one thing that we are that we kind of like try to push for, that American Latino voice, which, it's funny that we're here, Hollywood is here, but the American Latino voice has not been discovered, right? The Latino filmmakers that you see out there usually representing the Latino community, like the Guillermo del Toro, the Pedro Almodovar, like Guillermo del Toro, he's Mexican, and him and Alejandro Cuarón, and all these great Mexican filmmakers, they brought their voice from Mexico, Pedro Almodóvar has an amazing voice from Spain, right? So a lot of the ones that do succeed do come from different other countries, which is beautiful. You get to hear that voice. I love their films, I love to see their films. You get to hear their voice. But where Hollywood is lacking and the entertainment industry is lacking is giving that opportunity to their own, the American Latino voice, which is a very awesome, cool, and particular voice. Every time you go to like a film festival or a workshop or anything, everyone says, make sure when you write, you include your voice. That is so important for everybody, yet they don't understand our voice.
What that means with the voice.
What that means, right? Because I grew up, I was born in Cuba, but I was raised in Miami, and I grew up here in America. So I consider myself, American Latina, because I did grow up here, and I was raised here, right? But I grew up with two languages, Spanish and English, right? Which all of us from any background, doesn't matter if you're Cuban or Mexican or whatever, whether you're fluent or not, you grew up with a little bit of that and you use a little bit of that. And we have so many
And
things in
the
common.
slang's a little bit different too, right? Depending
Right.
on which
It's kind of
ethnicity
like,
is.
it's like Martin Scorsese making his movies from like the Italians in New York, or like, Ben Affleck making his movies from the Bostonians, That's how I see it. And that's what I would love to achieve with even my work, that people, saying those universal stories like they do, but that happen to have our American Latino voice in it, which is so much fun and so rich. And I feel like a lot of people will understand, because even if you don't speak Spanish and you're not Latino, there's certain words that are sprinkled out there that you probably use,
Sure.
that you, just by living here, right? Because we're such a melting pot. We're the United States of America. That's what brings us together, right? So
I have to ask this question, and Greg knows me
yeah.
well enough that no matter who I talk to, I have a story or an experience that works into the interview. I've traveled a bit in Latin America, and I remember it's happened to me on more than one occasion where they ask me, what are you? What country are you from? And I'll say, I'm American. And the reason I bring this up is because she said American Latino. Now, on more than one occasion, those people have said, I'm American too. And I said, well, what do you mean you're American? Well, North America, Central America, and South America,
yeah.
we're all American.
Yes,
Have you come across that?
You bring up a great point, and that is true. They're all American, because there is North America, South America, and it's true. Like I could see people, because many times what I hear though, actually, it's like when you travel, people ask you where you're from, and people are more specific. They're like, oh, I'm from New York, or I'm from Los Angeles, or I'm from Miami,
Right.
They don't say, oh, I'm American, or I'm from the United States, right?
Right.
So that's very interesting. But yeah, it is true. Maybe I have, maybe I have.
No matter. I just, Greg knows. I always got to work a little personal experience into the interview.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit. You're part of a group called the New Normal Reading Series. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I co-founded the New Normal Reading Series with another fellow filmmaker. He's a Black filmmaker. His name is Floyd Reeves. He also has an organization called Broken Barriers, pretty similar to what I do, right? And we got together in 2018 to create the New Normal Reading Series, which brings together all of our underrepresented communities to tell their stories. So we monthly, right? We would do this in Hollywood, and then we started a few years after in Atlanta. And we have amazing group leaders to head each group. So pretty much storytellers from the different backgrounds, whether you're Latino, Black, Native American, Asian, South Asian. You submit 10 pages, any 10 pages of your film, TV, scripts, right? That features more than 2 characters, because then if your script is selected, we do a live reading of that script, and then we cast actors from the same backgrounds, right? Native American, Asian, South Asian, Black, Latino, which is really fun because again, it brings that community together. But then the night of the evening of the event, it brings us all together because you have 10 pages read from each group, right? And it's something that I'm truly in love with. It's the first time I feel, because I not only co-produced the event with Floyd, but I head the Latino group, right? And it's the first time in anything that I've ever done, that I've seen our community come together. Because we're not there thinking, oh, I'm from here, I'm from there. We're there thinking, oh, we're artists, we're storytellers, and we're helping bring the writers' work to life. And I see people becoming friends immediately. I see people having a long-term relationship. I see people working together. So many great things, so many great opportunities have come out of there for like writers, directors, and actors, so it's for me, it's just such a beautiful thing, the New Normal Reading series. And this is why Floyd and I put our time to do it.
And how can
Jen,
people
also
find out
Jen,
more about
who
that?
Jen heads the Asian group. She also ended up becoming one of the co-producers with us because she was there from the start with us, right? So yeah, like you were saying, Gregory, the Black, the Asian, and the Latino were the ones that put this event together, right? And it's quite successful. We get a full house every time we do it. We were doing it live up until the shutdown happened, and then we did it a couple times virtually. But it's always fun live because you're there connecting with so many people, and we take our time to invite industry people and stuff like that, and the industry's aware that this is happening, right? Again, another place where you could find new stories, new original stories. You don't have to be remaking so much. So yeah.
Now, it seems like you're involved in so much in the organization, in all these groups, and getting the message out there. Do you still have a desire to get in front of the camera again? And if so, what type of opportunity or character would sort of draw you back there?
Okay, that's a really good question.
You got to think a minute, right? Because you're so busy.
Okay, so throughout the years, and I had mentioned this to Gregory, because I threw myself out there in creating this organization and doing all these things. What I ended up doing, I've become heavier on the producing side.
Right.
And, so I've been producing a lot of films and a lot of different things, right? But I decided to jump on board as a producer, on board films made by talented Latino filmmakers to show people that we have talent out there. So that's what I've been doing these past few years. And I actually have a movie premiering that just screened this Sunday at the Catalina Film Festival. And now it's premiering at Holly Shorts, which is an Oscar qualifying short film festival, made by a writer director who's Latino. He's super talented, or American Latino also. And well, he was born in Venezuela, just like I was born in Cuba, but he grew up here in the States, in Miami. So he has that in him too. So we're actually premiering his movie. We've been premiering his movie this week, which is a great movie. And it's a horror movie, right? But it deals with a heavy subject taking place in Venezuela. And Venezuela is going through a lot right now. And it's about sex trafficking, right? But it's an homage to to Exorcist, to the movie The Exorcist. And this filmmaker is a fabulous filmmaker, Miguel Angel Ferrer, right? So I've jumped on board to produce other people's films that I feel that are talented, just to prove again to people we have talent in our community, right? And I think that all these filmmakers that I've attached myself to, these people should be having big careers right now, because they're really talented. But since I am such a creative person, like the last 2 years, I was doing something very simple just to keep my creativity going. I was writing and directing a web series that I shot here in Hollywood with a couple of my actor friends, right? And just to keep that creative juice going. And I shot it with my smartphone, right? And it was just two of us behind the camera, myself and the person and the director of photography, who's also the editor, and me, who was the writer director, and we were both producers, right? So, and very easy, but like it kept, and with all the circumstances that always happens, in production and pre and all that stuff, like it was a great experience, because you have to keep rewriting things, you have to keep, so it kept me going, right? Now, going back to the acting question.
Yes, do you have a teeny desire to be in front of the camera again?
Yes. There is a movie that I have this desire in making that takes place as of right now. It would take place here in the States, in Miami and in London, right? And in this particular movie that I've been writing the characters and stuff like that, I would probably want to step back into one of those roles as an actor, because it's
Not,
very,
not to give the plot away,
yeah.
but what is it about that role that sort of attracts you to it?
Because it's very close to who I am. It's also a
So you'd be playing
filmmaker,
yourself.
a screenwriter or a filmmaker from, that grew up in Miami with her family, moved to Los Angeles, comes back to the funeral, or comes back after her grandmother has been deceased, and then connects. And the grandmother was is kind of like the pillar, of course, of the family. And then there's a lot of family dynamic there between them. It's also showing the kind of like the traditional and the non-traditional, because I go through that even, like I think any artist would. I live a very non-traditional life. But when I go back home, my family members live a very traditional life. So it's even hard for me to explain what my life looks like, you know, because as an artist, that's just how it is, right?
Right.
So it's like putting kind of like that dynamic in there, which I understand, you know? So it's having that, right? And then also the balance between the American Latino family and the British family, which I love the Brit sense of humor because it's so dry, right? And I'm like, and I love humor in my stuff, so that's how that's the way that I process things. So just and a lot of stuff that I tend to write have to do with like families or friends that are like family and type of stuff, that dynamic. So bringing that like American Latino family and that British family kind of like together, for me it's hilarious, and that came about because I have a dear friend of mine that grew up with me in Miami, and he's actually American Latino. He moved to London a long time ago, and he's been living out there, and he still has what he grew up with here that he brings out there, but he's also developed this strange British Miami dialects that I don't even. Sometimes I'm just like, talk to me in Spanish. I have no idea what you're telling me, But it's like,
Well,
knowing him living out there, that's kind of how the idea came about. Like that clash right there, right? Of like different
so
cultures.
he probably says that he winds you up.
What's that?
If you're familiar, he winds you up. If you're familiar with that British expression.
Oh, what would, in the British way, what would that mean?
It's called winding you up, meaning he's having a little fun with you
I guess, yes.
in his humor by getting you going, by telling you a story, or
Right,
just
right,
getting
right.
you really animated and laughing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's funny. It's a very funny dynamic there, and I could just, just again that humor that the Brits have and the humor that we have, just coming together. I think it's brilliant. you know,
Well, they'll tell you that we don't speak proper English either, right?
Here in the States.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the British.
Well, it is their language.
What's that?
It is their language, so I guess they
Yeah,
have an
yeah.
argument.
But that's the
Well,
fun part, bringing, for me it's about bringing different cultures together. I actually, there was another one that I did called The Three Bilinguals, which is about a Mexican, a Cuban, and a Puerto Rican that meet at the reading of their father's will. And their dad was from Spain, right? The moms were Mexican, Cuban, and Puerto Rican, right? So again, and it's a family, so it's again about mixing the cultures and bringing them together. That creates so much fun, so many different like crazy stories, and just
fun and fire.
yeah, a lot of fire, a lot of fun, and I'm all about that.
Well, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Greg now.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Harvey.
Maylen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I hope those of you who are listening out there have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. Um, this is why we do it. We want you to be aware of these great individuals that are out there. A couple of quick questions before we close. And you'll have to forgive me. I'm always everything I do. I'm going to tell on myself now. I always have an ulterior motive for everything that I do. So as you were talking, a couple of things came to mind, and feel free to decline. But I'm answering the question. But are you a member of the DGA?
I am not a member of the DGA. No, I am a member of SAG-AFTRA. I became a member of SAG-AFTRA a long time ago. I am not a member. Getting into the DGA is a little bit much more difficult.
It's more expensive.
Also more expensive. It's difficult. It's more expensive. And like you said, it's also when you're producing and you're putting productions together, it's more costly.
Yeah. Interesting. But one of these days because I had an idea. Because as you know, we're trying to put on a TV show, and we'll need directors from time to time. So I had a thought. That's why I was asking. But
and I hope that when I do my event out in New York, you come out also so you can meet also a lot of other directors.
I would love to. Absolutely love to. And I'm trying to think what was and of course the most important question of all. So of any of the people who are of our audience members who are interested in joining the Latino Filmmakers Network, how would they go about it?
It's so easy. Just on social media. If you're on Instagram, follow at Latino Filmmakers. Click the link on the bio. Everything's there. You could join our newsletter there. And also we have a Facebook page, Latino Filmmakers Network. Our Twitter is at Royal Latinicity, because Latino Filmmakers was taken at that time. So I made it at Royal Latinicity, but I kind of have it all connected, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I still have to get better at Twitter. I just don't know how to. It's too many socials to handle, and this is why I just connect them all, But we have a very big. I know that our biggest following is on Instagram, right? And then Facebook is great because you'll see the full articles there, but our Instagram will connect you to our Facebook page, and also our stories will have articles on our IG stories with links that connect you to them and stuff like that. So join our newsletter, join our socials at Latino Filmmakers on Instagram, Latino Filmmakers Network, Facebook. But most importantly, get involved. Come out, join the events. Hopefully, if it all works out, we'll be in New York soon, going back to New York, hosting a live event. The last live event we hosted before shutdown was in New York, and it's a beautiful thing to come back and host the first one back again in New York. So if it all works out now in October, it'll be New York. And then we'll most likely be at Sundance again. So, if you go to Sundance, we'll definitely be there in January. And just keep, yes, we hold a lot of events in LA. We've, hosted some stuff in Atlanta, right? But now I think that this virtual, like we said at the beginning, virtual world has opened up to new things, because now we could host also more events online as well, right? Throughout the pandemic, when we've hosted events online, it was a beautiful thing, because we were attracting people not only from all over the US, but from all over internationally, right? That were part of our event in Canada, right? And I had actors performing from all over, in our new normal reading series, which was beautiful, right? So just, get active. This Friday, actually, we're having an event. We're partnering up with other two organizations, Film Fatales and Chicana Directors Initiative, and it's called BYOP, Bring Your Own Producer. Yes. And the conversation, and it's going to start off with a conversation with producers, including myself, from the Latino Filmmakers Network, which will talk about about the relationship between directors and producers working together, right? And then after that, we're going to be breaking into smaller group rooms to network virtually. Okay. And that's a free event, which you could join by clicking the link on our bio and checking our social media, whether it's on at Latino Filmmakers on Instagram or Facebook Latino Filmmakers Network.
Well, thank you so much. We really enjoy you taking the time to speak with us. As I've mentioned before, we're about building a community. So we hope that this is not the last conversation, but just our first.
For
And
sure.
so for all of you that were out there today listening and or watching our episode, I want to thank our guest, Maylen Calienes. And of course, as always, Harv Lacko. I'm Gregory Q. Jenkins. I'm going to sign off and say bye-bye for now and see you next time.
See you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.